You wake up when your body is ready. No alarm, no buzzing phone dragging you out of a dream, no schedule already waiting to swallow the next 12 hours. For roughly 300,000 years, this was simply how a human morning began. Now think about your own week. The average modern worker spends around 90,000 hours of their life at a job. That is a number so large, it stops feeling real. So here is the question that should haunt you. If your ancestors didn't have jobs, didn't have bosses, didn't have a single appointment for thousands of generations, then what on earth did they do all day? The honest answer is stranger than you think. And it starts with a study almost nobody outside anthropology has heard of. In 1963, a young anthropologist named Richard Lee traveled into the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa. He went to live with the hoansi, a group of sand people who were still living largely as hunter-gatherers. Lee didn't want their myths or their stories. He wanted something colder. He wanted to measure exactly how many hours they spent getting food. So he followed them. He weighed what they gathered. He timed how long they hunted. And the number he came back with stunned the academic world. Roughly 15 hours a week. That was it. 2, maybe 3 hours a day of actual work to feed themselves. People living in one of the harshest deserts on Earth, with no farms and no supermarkets, were working less than half of what you do, and eating a varied, nutritious diet while they did it. Let that sink in for a second. The people we imagined as desperate, starving, scraping by, were quietly outperforming the modern office. And before you decide the hoansi were just a lucky exception, look east. In Tanzania, the anthropologist Frank Marlowe spent years living with the Hadza, one of the last groups on Earth to still hunt and gather the way humans did for most of our history. He measured the same thing Lee did, on the other side of the continent, in a completely different landscape. He found the same pattern. Hadza adults spend only a few hours a day acquiring food, and somehow the women, the men, the young, and the old all manage to eat. Two separate peoples, thousands of miles apart, quietly telling us the same thing about what a human day is supposed to cost. This finding became the seed of an idea from anthropologist Marshall Shallons, who gave it a name that still provokes arguments today. He called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society. Affluent means rich, well-supplied, lacking nothing. His point was simple and uncomfortable. These people weren't rich because they had a lot. They were rich because they wanted little, and what they wanted, they could get quickly. So if work only ate 2 or 3 hours, what filled the rest? This is where the picture gets beautiful. The anthropologist James Sussman, who spent decades living among the hoansi and wrote an entire history of human work, describes their days as soaked in something we are starving for. Time. Unstructured, open, ungoverned time. Let's reconstruct one of those days, because you can actually picture it. You wake at first light, but slowly. You lie there, you talk. Someone laughs across the camp. There's no rush, because the desert isn't going anywhere. After a while, a group of women decide to gather, and they walk out together to dig for mungongo nuts and tubers, talking the entire way. It is work, technically. It also looks a lot like a long walk with friends. The men might decide to hunt. But a hunt is not guaranteed, and it is not daily. Sometimes they track an animal for hours and come back with nothing. Sometimes they don't go at all. And here is the part that breaks the modern brain. Coming back empty-handed was not a disaster, because the gathered food, the reliable plant food, was the real backbone of the diet. The dramatic hunt was almost a bonus. By early afternoon, the food is in, and then the day simply opens up. People nap in the shade. They repair tools, slowly, without urgency. They sit and make jewelry from ostrich eggshell beads, beads so old that we have found them buried in sites tens of thousands of years deep, which tells you this urge to make beautiful, useless things is not modern either. Someone tends a small wound. 2 people argue, loudly, and then it passes, because in a camp this size you cannot afford to stay angry. Children are everywhere, running in mixed-age packs, half-watched by everyone, and owned by no one's schedule. There are no play dates. There is no curriculum. The children learn by copying, by playing, by being bored and inventing their way out of it. And notice what is missing from this whole afternoon. There is no boss. There is no clock. No one is selling their hours to anyone else, because the idea of an hour as a thing you could sell would have made no sense at all. Time was not money. Time was just the shape of the day. And then the sun goes down, and something remarkable happens. Anthropologist Polly Wisner did something nobody had quite done before. She recorded and analyzed the actual conversations of the Jew hoansi, and she split them by time of day. What she found is one of the most quietly profound discoveries in all of anthropology. During the daytime, around 2/3 of conversation was practical: complaints, jokes, gossip, who did what, arguments about resources. The ordinary friction of living close together. But at night, around the fire, the conversation transformed. More than 80% of nighttime talk was something else entirely. Stories, myths, tales of distant relatives and faraway places, songs. The deep imaginative life of the group, lit by flame. So picture your ancestor there. The day's work is long done. Their belly is full. They are sitting in firelight, listening to an elder describe a hunt from 40 years ago, or a spirit world, or a journey to a camp they will never see. This wasn't filler. This was the glue that held a culture together across thousands of years with no writing at all. Now here comes the twist, the part that turns this whole story inside out. For a long time, the assumption was that farming saved us from this hard, primitive life. That agriculture was the great leap forward, the moment humans finally got comfortable. The geographer Jared Diamond famously challenged this, calling the adoption of agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. That sounds insane until you look at the skeletons. When humans switched to farming, the archaeological record shows something grim. People got shorter. Their bones show more disease, more malnutrition, more brutal repetitive labor. Tooth decay exploded as diets narrowed to a few starchy crops. And the workload didn't shrink, it detonated. A field has to be cleared, planted, weeded, watered, defended, and harvested. And then you do it again. Forever. Farming didn't give your ancestors free time. It buried them. So why did anyone do it? Because farming let more people survive on the same land, even if each of those lives was harder and shorter. Agriculture didn't win because it made individuals happier. It won because it made more of them. You are reading this, in a sense, because your ancestors traded their freedom for sheer numbers. And that trade is the thing you inherited. Think about your own day now. The alarm, the commute, the 8, 10, 12 hours given to someone else's goals, the endless low hum of tasks that never actually end. We built an entire civilization with medicine and music and flight, and somewhere along the way, we worked ourselves into a corner your hunter-gatherer ancestors would have found absurd. They had less stuff than you can imagine. No house, no savings. Almost no possessions, because anything you own you have to carry. But they had something our economy can't seem to manufacture at any price. They had time that belonged to them. They had a full belly bought with a few hours of effort, and then a long, open afternoon, and then stories by the fire. This isn't a romance. Their world had real danger, real loss, real grief, and lives that often ended early. You would not trade your antibiotics for their freedom, and you shouldn't. But the comparison still cuts, because it reveals something we rarely let ourselves see. Working endlessly is not human nature. It is a recent arrangement. Our deepest instincts were shaped across hundreds of thousands of years of doing enough, and then stopping. So the next time a quiet afternoon makes you feel guilty, the next time stillness feels like you're failing at something, remember where that feeling actually comes from. It is not ancient. It is brand new. Your ancestors woke up when their bodies were ready. No alarm, no schedule, no one to answer to. For 300,000 years, that wasn't laziness. That was simply what it felt like to be human.